Hey guys, Templar here, and today I'm going to be talking about one of my newest weapons, and it will be this, the Scottish Arming Sword. Now this is a really cool weapon. Now this is a lot different compared to my Viking-ish broadsword, or late Viking sword, as it's also known as a Nordic arming sword, some people pronounce it as, of which that would be extremely different compared to this one. Now, the design difference is actually also in its guard, as you can tell, and as well including the handle length included. In fact, while holding this sword in general, we can even see the fact that the sword is extremely elongated, especially enough for me to do a good, well, hand design for, well, murder blows. However, these were technically not used like that most of the time. In fact, while holding the sword, and yes, this is sharp, and which I'm going to have to put on these gloves just to make sure I don't cut my hands any further. Now, as while I'm holding this, I can use the Italian grip extremely well, but this guard design, as you can see, is pointed upwards. Now, why is this? Well, the Scots invented this to actually work in a type of way, to actually lock a sword. Say my hand is the sword blade, and it comes down, I can easily lock it a lot easier, and in the process, use that momentum against them. And in fact, it's even been stated that these swords were even nicknamed the mini claymores by the late periods. Now, what we do know about these swords, though, is historical, that these were mostly meant for type of ceremony use most of the time. Why is that? Well, it's kind of because of its handle length. In fact, while holding this, it's extremely has enough, well, the rest of the grip for me to use this as a hand and a half sword. If y'all don't know what type of sword that is, it's technically a, well, medieval bastard sword, if you could think about it, if you were to go to other countries. In fact, these images are of medieval bastard swords in general regions. However, that's explaining something. In fact, this is a Nordic or Scandinavian type of broadsword, or should I say arming sword. Now, while holding this one, you can see my hand has a full amount of grip, meaning there's not that much excess grip. However, with this one, not so much. There's still a lot more access to it. And as well, the blade is extremely slightly narrower, and as well, it doesn't have a fuller like this one. Now, why is that? Well, that's actually kind of obvious. Since this is an arming sword, it means that the manufacturing design is a lot different. Now, I can easily still use this as a one-handed sword. I guess you gotta build up a lot of muscle for this to work. And yes, this is generally heavier than other arming swords of history. In fact, most of the time when we think of arming swords, we normally think of that of which a sword would be used as a hand and a half sword, like this. Meaning, they would grab the blade for more, well, control ability. And if you think about it, that makes sense. Now, yes, I am still sharpening this sword. Now, this sword, though, is a lot different compared to the other ones, because since it's a Scottish version, they normally would have this symbol on the top, in which it would technically be the middle finger dashing outward. In other words, flipping the bird, so to speak. Now, you can easily use this weapon on the battlefield. However, these were nicknamed mini claymores by the English, or mini longswords by the English, because of the fact these were extremely gruesome with a good cutting design blow, especially against a Scottish commander at the Battle of Circa, I believe it was, or I can't remember. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but yeah. It was stated that while this actually took place, it was stated that these swords were used mainly by a lot of Scots, including Robert the Bruce, William Wallace, and so on. In fact, the first time this sword might have seen action as an arming sword might have been during the 13 or late 1200s. So might have seen action during the time of the Battle of Bannockburn, or including even at the Battle of Stirling Bridge, or even at the Battle of Falkirk. Yes, both the first and second one. Now, while holding this, it feels like it's more meant for a cutting blow. However, that's the thing. These swords were meant for both. These things were technically meant to kill not a human being, but actually the horse. So just imagine this. This weapon being used against a horse, especially a cavalry, especially the knight. So yes, these swords were incredibly gruesome, and these were nicknamed, well, many great swords by the English nobility. In fact, the nobles hated these swords. They prefer to call them the great swords because of how dangerous their, well, wide sweep of a killing cut they were. However, this was not a great sword to the Scots. This is a Scottish claymore by the time of the medieval period, or the very late medieval period, and into the time of the colonial Renaissance period. Or as a lot of people call it, the Renaissance. But I just call it the late medieval because it's a lot easier to understand. Now, though, here's the thing. These swords were so gruesome on the battlefield, they were probably almost terrifying for the English to deal with. In fact, say if like I'm a Scottish nobleman, I'm dressed in mail and gambeson and such, and guess what? I'm fighting against, say, a nobleman from England. Here's the thing. This sword would be perfect for getting into their skulls. That's probably the scary part. Now, the thing is, sometimes these swords weren't sharpened. Why? Here's the thing. One historical chronicler from the Battle of, I want to say, the Fahrenheit. I'm sorry, I'm trying to speak Celtic here, but it's kind of a little impossible. Anyways, apparently this warrior had the sword completely blunted, and the only thing he was using was the very tip of the sword as a type of thrusting weapon. And doing so, it was so narrow with the blade at the very end. The blade managed to actually penetrate through the man's mail and his gambeson, killing him instantly. And if you're all wondering where a Scottish nobleman thrusted, it said he thrusted upwards from the stomach and into his lungs, killing him very slowly and painfully. Now, however, this sword is extremely tall for being a one-handed sword. And yes, this is a one-handed sword, but as I stated, you can use it as a two-handed sword, especially. Now, for me, if I want more control, I can just put my finger over the guard here, using the Italian grip, as it's called. Later on to evolve into the rapier grip. So yeah. Now, I do have a little control, but I'm trying to make sure not to hit the fan, literally. Which, yes, this thing is extremely gruesome on the battlefield. Just imagine of how gruesome this design was. And now, here's the thing though, as I stated, they did not use this mainly for murder blow strikes. If y'all don't know what a murder blow strike, here's the thing. It would be like this. That would be terrifying. Now the thing is, why they didn't do that is because it might be a little too dangerous. Like sometimes the tips of these pommel heads, or the guard itself, were actually even sharpened extremely gruesomely to a point. That way, when you do the said murder blow, it could go in, say, the eyeball right here, and that would be gruesome enough. Now, that's the thing. Most arming swords at the time, though, used by other countries, especially Scandinavia and England, would have probably still used this model, not this model. So the Scots actually had a one-up type of weapon to defeat their enemies. So yeah, that's kind of terrifying. Now, another thing you might ask, but Templar, why is the guard like this? Well, that's actually a very good question. The reason it's kind of actually like this is because of their ancestral roots to the Picti, or the Picts, and as well to their form of religion. Now, it's actually, if you don't know anything about Scottish history, here's the thing. Here, right behind me, is none other than the St. Andrew Cross. Now, if y'all don't know anything about that, that's a Scottish flag right there. blue background, and as well a white cross symbolizing the clouds, of which was even stated to have actually been seen sometime during the Jacobite Rebellion, and as well even during the time of the unitation of Alba, or Scotland as some people call it. Now, in general, these swords were actually notified by that, but in general, the guard was shaped like this for many reasons. One, to lock the sword. Two, because, well, it symbolized off of their religion of the St. Andrew's cross. Three, it also represented of their ancient ancestry. Now, what might that be? I'm glad you asked. Because it would be off of this one. If y'all don't remember my Celtic sword, here's the thing. See the guard right here? This is to keep the hand in place. But the Scots, what they did is that they extended it. And as well, if we know anything about the St. Andrew's cross, if none of y'all know what actually happened to St. Andrew, it's stated that he was crucified upside down on an X-shaped cross, of which was extremely a little different compared to the regular crucifixions. So yeah, this sword measures off to that. Now, it does come with a beautiful black scabbard and such, with a pommel cap and including a little guard cap here, so keeps it nice and firm. Now, its grip is brownish instead of black. I don't know why they did it like that. Either way, it doesn't matter to me. So look, these were effective on the battlefield. Now, it has a good sword that, if none of y'all know, this is pinged, and it has a really good smooth little pommel area of the face, which is really cool. Now, that's actually saying something. These swords are incredibly different compared to other swords. Now, though this is only one version of these said Scottish swords, in which, here's the thing, there were actually a number of Scottish swords that actually looked like this and had different designs on them. In fact, Skallagrim has his version, which I'm hoping to try and find one like that. Now there's also the Windless version. If y'all don't know what the Windless version looks like, it looks like this, of which you can also... Now here's the thing though, you also see this version in the movie, literally in the movie, The Outlaw King, in which this sword, you can see that beautiful crossguard, which I love. In fact, these were... In fact, if you were to go into Scotland during the medieval period, you could tell the difference between who was who was who back then, not just by language, but also just by seeing this, the guard of the sword. And in fact, this guard is really impressive. In fact, I like this guard a lot more than other guards of medieval history, because, well, it traps the sword. And in fact, they also look like near identical to this sword, which is a Viking sword that was found somewhere near Scotland. And some historians actually debate maybe that the Scots might have coexisted with the Vikings to making this model. If it's true or not, I would like to know. Still though, these things are incredibly gruesome. In fact, I'm holding this right now without my gloves, with one hand, and here's the thing. My hand fully holds the grip. Problem is, I don't feel like I have control, so I have to move up. Here's the thing, I have more extra space, meaning it's now a two-handed sword. This is probably one of the most dangerous things about this thing, in which why the whole English feared these weapons. In fact, it's even stated that these swords were even sometimes used by the Irish. Now, we're not technically given the true form and fashion if they did or not, but still, this is really cool. Now, though, I do like these swords a lot, especially a Scottish type. However, there are very rare few of these finds, and whenever we do find them, they're not exactly the same thing. In fact, they're actually extremely different. Now, this one is made from replica, and yes, that's a little different. Now, as you can see, there is hardly any more much of a fuller. Why? Well, this is an arming sword. The metal has, or the steel or iron, whatever you want to call it, has actually, well, been upgraded from its old-fashioned bronze from its old-fashioned broadsword version like this to this version. And yes, the idiotic birds are kind of becoming a pain in my nuisance here when I'm kind of recording. As you can see, The swords, and literally, this is actually how high they are from the ground right now. This is kind of impressive because they're only slightly taller. Because literally, the sword blade is extremely narrow. And the thing is, the guard is extremely different, the pommel is extremely different, and as well the blade itself is extremely different. So this is saying something. However, most of the swords like this were not found in most regions like, say, the Highlands or Lowlands of Scotland, but actually somewhere in between. Most of them were found in the most regions of what you might call the area of the boglands of Scotland, such as we can say somewhere north of Stirling but south of Loch Ness. So in that case, these swords were mainly used in that said region. However, the further north you went, the more and more they had more of the broadsword design to it. So still, these swords are incredibly badass. And if y'all want to buy them, let me know. You can actually just take a look at the description down below, as well you'll have more information on these swords down in the description below. And if y'all want me to talk more about these swords, also let me know down in the comments. Anyways guys, also check out our Facebook, and as well like and subscribe, so that way you can be notified of another upcoming video by pressing that bell button. Anyways guys, this has been Templar. Have a great day.